three common approaches or methods to writing. Some of these will feel familiar to you. Some of them might feel very foreign to you. And then we'll go from there. The very first one is probably one that you know the most about. It's actually come to be known as the current traditional. Seems kind of contradictory. How can something be current and traditional? So something can be both current and traditional if it was something that we practiced for a long, long time, for whole generations, and we are still applying those traditional concepts, okay? So the current traditional method talks about form. What is form? What does that word mean to you? John.
The way you do something. Or
Okay, I like that. Suri?
Uh-huh.
Um, the way it looks, or like maybe like its shape.
Ah, I like the word shape and the way it looks. Those are both relevant. Abigail?
Like different styles.
Okay, nice. Haley?
The way that you form, or the way that you like shape it.
Okay, excellent. How about we pull in an analogy here? And for all three methods of writing, I'm going to talk about baking a cake. Because you might think of writing an essay as a process, or we need a method to do that. Same thing with baking a cake. And so if I'm going to focus on form, that means I'm going to care a great deal about my recipe and the step-by-step instructions on how to do that perfectly. I'm going to follow all the rules, and I'm going to need a solid form in the shape of a pan to pour my batter into to bake my cake. All right. Now, here are some key things that come with focusing on form. Who wants to read those 3 bullet points for me? Max, your hand shot right up. Go ahead. Have you guys ever approached writing through this angle before? As when you're the author, did you ever put much thought into why you're writing what you're writing? That seems kind of important. Have you ever thought about your audience? Like, who is this for? Who's going to read it? Because seems like that's important. If I'm baking a cake, I think I better know who's going to eat my cake. How many people are going to be eating my cake? Do they have any allergies that I should be aware of when I bake this cake? I need to know that so that I can design my cake to fit my audience. Writing is no different. The beauty of what we're going to do this year and what we've been learning in writing and rhetoric, if you've been at JAA, is that we're going to marry all 3 of these together. And I want you to feel that you're going to get the best of all 3. Something really cool happens when you add form plus substance plus context. Okay, so think about the cake. Something really cool happens when you have a solid recipe. Maybe you inherited that recipe from your grandma and it is trusted and true. And then you add to that the substance, which is the love. Isn't the secret ingredient in grandma's brownies and cake always been love, right? That's the substance. And you pour your love into it, and you have the context where you're a smart baker. And there are times where you're like, you know what, we're all out of white sugar, but I sure love when I baked that last cake with this organic sucanat, right? And you use this alternative sugar, but you know you can because you're smart and you've done it before. According to that context, you can make changes to the rules. And what do you get? You get a delicious cake. And it's beautiful and it tastes good and everybody's happy, right? Well, guess what? There's a name for that. We're going to call it rhetoric. I want you this year to learn how to bake that beautiful cake that we call rhetoric. Suri, any thoughts on what rhetoric means?
Rhetoric, it's like it's like I remember it's like speaking like clearly, or like speech that's like
Yeah.
I forgot what it says, but it's like speaking with confidence, or like how you
Yes.
present with it.
Read this out loud for us, Suri.
The art of persuasive speech.
That's exactly what you're saying right now. How many of you have ever been in a situation where you're listening to people talk and it's about a topic that you care a great deal about? And they're starting to say some things that you disagree with pretty strongly, but you're afraid to speak up because you don't know how to formulate your words, and you don't know how to articulate your thoughts, and you feel tongue-tied, and your armpits are sweaty, and you're nervous. Like, there's so many different sensations we can start to feel when we think about speaking our truth, right? Yeah. This is a human experience that I'm sure all of us have felt 100 times over. But rhetoric is an actual discipline that we can learn how to formulate those thoughts. And do you see how doing that in writing enough times can lend itself to speaking? Because if you've written powerful essays all throughout your education, then suddenly you're in the moment, in the middle of a conversation at dinner with friends, and they bring up this topic that you're so passionate about. And it's like, you know what? I don't actually have to write the whole essay, but I know the process. I know the recipe. I can bake this cake. And you speak it off the cuff, and you become a powerful rhetorician, right? Where you can just speak so effectively. We're going to learn about the history of rhetoric. Abigail, go ahead.
To the ancient Greeks, rhetoric was foundational for the education of a free citizen who was expected to participate in the public debate in the assembly. Free men were also expected to make speeches to defend themselves in court. Public speaking was thus held in extremely high regard in ancient Greece, and mastery of language, mastery of speech making, was the thrust of ancient Greek education.
Wow. So rhetoric is actually from ancient Greece, and it was so part of their educational foundation that all school children, at this time, it probably would have been mostly boys that were learning rhetoric, but we live in a modern world where girls are equal. So girls are learning rhetoric too, right? Back then, it probably would have been mostly boys, but they were learning rhetoric throughout their entire education in order to prepare them to engage in their free society. And you had to have a voice. You had to be able to defend your honor, your freedom, your choices. And if you couldn't speak, you were going to lose that freedom. So it's a pretty amazing part of our education here at JAA. Have your thoughts expanded a little bit here? Are you thinking of writing a little bit differently? Take a minute and write down some more of your thoughts. Think about any insights that you've had, any aha moments, something that inspired you, something that's caused you to think differently, and write that down.
I feel like the purpose is like the same as Suri, but it's also to express emotions, or like provide information, or like to express ourselves. Can also like persuade people with truth.
Beautifully said, Katie. Thank you. It is my sincerest hope that this year we get to learn the art of rhetoric together. I want you to be able to produce the delicious cake, right? That doesn't just look good, but it tastes good, and that you were inspired when you baked it. Okay, so cake is now our code word for amazing